Kingdom citizen, yeah, yeah. Kingdom citizen of Wisconsin. Kingdom citizen, yeah, yeah. Kingdom citizen. Well, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. It is I again, Dr. David D. King, watching Kingdom Citizens of Wisconsin. I am your host here, and I am excited to be with you guys. I had a full day, a long day, but I'm always ready to talk about the three constitutions, the Word of God, the United States, and the Wisconsin Constitution. I'm always excited. But today, you guys, guess what? Yes, it's that time again. I have a woman that will break your face if you try to take away her freedom. She will knock you upside the head with the Constitution, roundhouse you with the Bill of Rights, and body slam you with the Declaration of Independence. Y'all better watch out. She don't play no games. She's a mama bear. Not only is she a mama bear, but she is a black belt in the Constitution. So y'all better watch her. She have the right to lay hands on you when you try to call us a democracy instead of a constitutional republic. So let us bring her on, the constitutional queen, Sarah.
Good evening. Good evening.
And I know you like, what are you gonna say this time?
Oh yeah, I'm always waiting in anticipation in the back room.
And you know, hey Liz, we've got Liz on. J-Rod is on. But y'all know we're not alone tonight because you know Batman gotta have Robin, and Green Hornet has to have Kato. Lone Ranger got Tonto, right?
Yeah.
Tarzan got Jane. Everybody got somebody. So with further ado, let's bring the constitutional queen sidekick, Thelma and Louise. I tell you, she is a mother who loves to fight for her rights, but she's also a bully in the PMA. For those who don't know what that means, you need to find out. But she's also, you guys, she is also known from the Wild Wild West. She will pull out her 6-shooter and shoot you with the Constitution, shoot you on how to win a case without a lawyer, shoot you with how to save your business, shoot you with don't mess with my baby. And if you don't know what a woman are yet today, call her up and she will body slam you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring in No Mercy, Amber.
Oh, my Lanta, I don't even.
See, I was going to stop until I saw you backstage laughing, and then I was like, let me just keep it going.
Wild Wild West is right. And how did I get to be the main character? I've been feeling like the sidekick to both of you guys.
Well, you can more than hold your own, though. So,
and not only that, she acts like she's innocent. You know. Let's talk about what they doing to children and watch her go.
I'm gonna try to fix my camera, by the way, super quick.
Yeah, no problem.
It didn't help. Oh wow, I'm blurry tonight, y'all. I definitely got a kick out of Sarah's intro though. So I was like getting ready to hide behind a pillow or something.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I gotta come with something new every week. You know, I gotta figure out. I'll be like, okay, I said that last time. Let me say this time. And
yeah.
Sometimes I don't know what I'm saying. It just come out. You know.
It just comes. Yeah.
It just comes, so.
Well, I mean, you know me. What you see is what you get. So I kind of like getting talked up by other people.
I know, right? So this is our third podcast in 2 days. So I am excited, and I love this morning podcast. Inside inside the new studio. I mean, that was amazing. And
Yeah, I was listening to parts of it because I was running errands all day, but I got to tune into some of it. So
yeah, so I'll be doing a lot of more podcasts out of there. So before we go, let's just have a moment of silence for the families of the shooting at the school. And we pray that God will touch the family and comfort the family on what happened. So let's just take a moment of silence for a minute. Okay. But I will say this. It's tragic that that they will or they will not allow trained security to protect our babies.
yeah.
You know, I will not go nowhere to eat where they tell me no guns allowed because I am not going to go sit as a sitting duck.
Yeah.
When I take my daughter to the movies, trust me, I'm packing. We will not be a statistic in anything. I'm going to operate my Second Amendment. And I want us to start off like this. Guns is not bad.
Nope.
Okay. It's who hands they are in that makes
Yep,
it.
they're just tools. Yep.
Yes. Just like
that's why when you hear people going on and on about how this gun killed somebody, and it's like, no, the gun didn't do it. It was the person pulling the trigger. Like that's we got it, or like the car, this Ford Explorer rammed into a bunch of citizens in a parade. You know, it's like, no, the guy behind the wheel rammed into a bunch of citizens. The car was a tool that he used.
right.
And even so, we don't go talking about banning that Ford whatever just because that was the car that was used to run into a bunch of people. So why are
we don't talk about banning forks because it makes us get fat or something, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, it's the fork that's going in our mouth, but it's not going in our mouth by itself.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's sad that it's happening. I just don't want people to try to take a family's pain for their own purpose and their own gain. So
Chris Ann Hall, as morbid as it is, and I may be slightly misquoting her, but we cannot continue to fall for, you know, dead kid legislation. I think that's what she calls it, but it's something like that. Like, don't let these things control us and make us make decisions out of emotion rather than truth and fact.
I know that I know a young lady whose kids was actually in that school. So and you know, thank God.
I think, is it the same person that we know?
I think. Do you know her?
Yeah, the one that was down in Milwaukee when we were down there.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Her baby.
Which I didn't know until I saw her post today. My heart just breaks for her. I mean, it already was, but it makes it that much more personal when you know someone who is that close and that impacted.
Right.
Yeah, and you think of the conversations she's going to have with her kiddos, and just all of the trauma that is added on, and is, you know, she's going to be thinking of that every time she drops her kids off at school, right? And like just, and you know, and we don't want to give the 15 minutes of fame to the shooter. Right. And we also need to know this person was broken and wounded, and we don't know why, we don't know how.
Right.
But for a 15-year-old to think that this is the way to go, that this is the way, let's pick up a gun and shoot people.
But I mean,
what is broken inside of her that it would cause her to do that at that age, where, and then to end her own life? It's just, you know, I'm not condoning her behavior at all. It was evil. It was pure evil. And that comes from a massive place of brokenness. And so we have to explore this from all different angles. There is a broken system, and there's also a broken connection to our God.
Right. And I'm glad, you ended it with the broken connection with God, because when we have broken connection with God, the devil comes in and does what it does. And the
Yep.
devil's job is to influence people for the kingdom of darkness. And so this is why we have to be a light in all of these areas.
Yeah.
And it's sad that you gotta wonder, if I send my kids to school today, are they coming home?
Right.
That is a
Exactly.
sad thing to want to think about. Is my child going to come home?
Yeah.
You know?
And it's not even just the physical, are they coming home? It's also the spiritual. When I send my child to this indoctrination place, am I getting my child back?
Right.
Is he
Right.
coming home to
I
me?
battle that every day, and I know exactly what you guys are referring to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's why we got to stay prayed up and pray hard,
mhm.
Sure.
and colonize earth for heaven, and remove some of this darkness and evil that is flirting around. And so, yeah, it's terrible. And I just sat there before the show came on, and I was watching a lady being found guilty of numerous of cases of abusing children, and even killing some of the children.
Oh my goodness.
And just to hear uh, the um, that it was so many cases, and I'm listening, and I'm sitting there like, what?
How
I
does
mean,
that go on for so long without being found?
right. And so we have to, I believe, check on everybody, and make
Yeah.
sure that they're okay, and we got to be able to be open enough to listen to God, to look at the signs of a person that are hurting, because just because they got a smile on their face doesn't mean they're not hurting.
Exactly. And that's where it comes down to, and we've talked about this so many times, is building our community in our own homes, in our own neighborhoods, with our churches, with whatever social groups we are part of, really reaching out. I mean, we know a few of our neighbors. The kids know more of the neighbors than I do, because they're out more than I am, but at the same time, just getting to know those neighbors. It's something as simple as bringing a plate of cookies over the holidays, or just reaching out to different people in the neighborhood, and a neighbor that you haven't seen in a while, maybe you're concerned about them, or whatever the case may be. That's how we rebuild those communities and rebuild those connections with God, even because we are being the hands and feet of Jesus in our communities. And if more people stepped up and did that, we would be seeing less of these 15 and 16-year-olds going into schools and shooting it up.
And being able to properly identify where the harm is coming from. I'm not sure if the listeners recall, I'm also an advocate for abuse survivors. And actually just yesterday, totally unrelated to the school event, I had made a post referencing someone that people who are local and went to my local school would actually know who I'm referring to. And it was because I was calling out an abuse that happened, and I'm going to call it that, abuse, because even though it wasn't physical, it still happened. Words, I do not buy into the sticks and stones baloney. Words can actually cause more, and do cause more long-term harm when they are internalized than any stick or stone.
Right.
Yeah. And it affects you physically.
Yep. And
even if they've never taken a stick to you. Yeah.
Right. And the worst part was,
and this is
I wasn't, what was that?
I said, this is why one of the things Rosie and I was talking about, if we start telling the babies who they are in God from a small, when those words come, it doesn't hurt them because they already know who they are. But if you don't know who you are, then they can hurt real bad. And so this is why we got to remind the children that God sent you to earth with a purpose. You have a purpose. And in that purpose, you got to know who you are, because if you don't, you'll be intimidated by any and everybody. But thank God we can show you who you are, that you can go forward. And this is why we need God back in the home for real, not religion. We need God back in the house for real.
Yeah.
We need God back in our schools for real.
And think about, Amber, what would have happened if that person in your school had breathed life into the kids, right? Like I talk about this with my kids all the time. Am I breathing life? Am I giving life, or am I giving death into your life today, right? Am I breathing it into you in such a way that the spirit is breathing life and not death,
the post I was referring to, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And I was just thinking about that, like that is the question that every human being, but especially the adults in the lives of children, should be asking is, am I breathing life into the life of
true life? Not,
yes.
I mean, and the reason I say that is it seemed a reliable source. I'm not going to say exactly what I saw until it's confirmed, but what I saw about the person that did the shooting, and I'm going to say it that way because, like Sarah said, they were broken. Yes. And putting such a heavy adult label on an action of a very broken child, in my opinion, that's kind of shifting blame to the greater cause. Who was causing the damage, whether it's chemical, influence from medications or whatever, or those negative messages in our head that are not of God, but of the world, that, are not part of our the true version of ourselves.
Right.
And
because you don't get a 15-year-old hating all men everywhere and blasting it out to everybody on her Facebook post. You don't get a 15-year-old doing that unless it comes from somewhere, right? Who is teaching you?
Exactly. And
but
so
not only who's teaching it, what is the ones that, because was they touching? Because if a person's starting to hate a certain particular group, whether it's old men, old women, whatever, then your question is, who's been touching that baby?
Yeah. Who's been violating that person? Yeah.
And that's the part that gets me, is when you think it's okay to touch a child.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You get me going on the what do they call them, maps now, or whatever the new wording is for it. You get me on that roll. We're going to be here all night.
Wait. I got a new name for MAP now.
Oh, Lord.
Minor attracting pedophile.
Yeah, there you go. Redundant, but it works.
I know, right? It's a pedophile.
I was just going to say pedo, but okay.
Yeah.
But
that, I mean, that's why we have laws that are put there in place to give due process under the law. It's not just for the accused, it's also for the victims, right? And we talked about that. We talked a little bit about that in some of our previous discussions, but bringing it back to the constitutions, which is kind of where we're wrapping up for the last three conversations. The state constitution has that in the Bill of Rights, and it's like the first page, 2 pages, and it goes into this laundry list of all of the rights that a victim has. It does go into the accused, but we're also forgetting there's a victim that needs restitution, and that restitution may not be a monetary payment. It may be that they need counseling for the rest of their lives to deal with the trauma of what they went through, or that may mean that they need loving people in their lives to come around them and give them a safe space to release all of that stuff that just got thrown on them, right? Like when we talk about this, and this is where we've gone so far away, because we have not connected our constitutions. We've not connected those 3 constitutions together and used them as a buffer to actually defend and protect the rights of individuals, especially the least of these. We talk, we've talked about that in the biblical constitution, where it talks about the least of these. Whoever does not love the least of these, whoever does not reach out and help the least of these, right? They're like worse than infidels. They're worse than God spits on that, because And beyond that, he goes into, if you're the one messing with the least of these, if you're the one abusing,
It's
and
better if you not be born.
it's better that, yeah, it's better to have a millstone around your neck and be tossed into the ocean and drowned. I mean, he's not mincing words, right? Like, this is serious, because we're talking about the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. What are we imbuing the next generation with? And we can talk in generalities and say, oh, well, it doesn't work for everybody that way. Yeah, okay, that's great. So there's some strong kids who manage to get through abuse and survive it, and they grow up and they're great. What about the ones who don't? What about the ones who lost those advantages because somebody spoke death into their lives, or somebody?
But you know what? We got to ask ourselves, are they really great? Because here's the thing. When you're going through something, it might make you bitter. It might make you better.
Mm-hmm.
But also, though, in that process of being better,
mm-hmm.
are you still affected every time you see something that resembles it?
Yeah. It doesn't leave you. You have scars.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the process of that, you got to look at it and say, wow, I thought I was okay with it, but now when I see it, I see it all the time. Like if you watch a police show, right? And they go to a murder scene, and one of them was at the murder scene, and they saw the teddy bear, and the other police officer, are you all right? Are you all right? And it took him back to a time in his childhood where the abuse was there. Now it seems like he was okay, but the moment he got in that arena of similarity, that's when it comes back out forth. Because we can go away from a place, we can run away from it and thinking, okay, now I'm away from it, I'm okay, until I run into it again.
Yeah. And that is something that I feel like we're talking about it more often, but we for a long time weren't talking about the compound effect of abuse, especially in a child's life. Like, yes, it affects adults. And if it starts in adulthood, there's not those decades and decades of a child, the first 2 decades of their life being impacted, right? And that doesn't lessen the abuse of an adult. And there's something in a child, the formative years of a human being, there is so much deeper wounding and harder time recovering from that. And who was it? C.S. Lewis? Was it C.S. Lewis or G.K. Chesterton who said, it's easier to, how does it go? It's easier to, I've got to find the quote. So you guys keep talking. I'm going to find that quote because I don't want to get it messed up.
Look at it. That's what I like about it. Go find it.
Well, what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me, because those first 2 decades are the formative years where we establish our identity. And so the voices that get spoken to us, the things that happen to us, become part of our reality in how we perceive the world. Yes. And I was actually on a call last night of how to raise our own, they use the word energy. I know some people don't like it, but every emotion can be traced energetically. So that's the word we're using for the moment. But essentially raising our energy to be able to connect better with others. If we've never even experienced the essence or the feeling that is, for instance, enthusiasm or enlightenment, we can never portray that. If all we've ever really experienced, or not even all, but if in those formative years there were significant experiences of anger, of grief, of blah, 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 that becomes how we perceive the world. And it requires becoming conscious of that lens to be able to then shift it, still recognize that happened, not forgetting about it, but being able to see it, that it was just one experience that happens to be in the past now, and then I can choose to see the potential and the possibility in future experiences, not having to repeat the same thing that I've already experienced.
But we talked about that with the on on the Kingdom Holistic show with the doctors. We talked about that, right, Sarah?
Mhm.
And
Yep,
and
we
one of
did. Yeah.
and one of the things that we have to also look at when a child is going through a drama, any kind of drama or trauma,
hmm
when a child going through the trauma, I call it drama. I'm black, so
Yeah.
y'all don't have to say drama, okay? Not trauma. Don't get it white on me right now. But when they go through this, right? A lot of times the child is feeling guilty because they think they caused it.
Yep. They think they're at fault for it. Yeah.
Right. And so we gotta, it's so much to go
It
forward
becomes
in here.
internalized.
Yeah,
Yep.
because it ain't your fault. Like
Exactly.
if the parent leave the house, why daddy leave me? What did I do wrong? Why mama leave me? What did I do wrong? And
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with the child. And nobody go back to the child and say it's not your fault.
Yeah. So that quote, I completely got it wrong. It was Frederick Douglass. They said it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Okay, yes, that's Frederick D.
We could save that. I want you to end with that, Sarah. That
Okay.
boom. That is a mic drop. That needs to get blasted everywhere.
The mic drop. You and
I will save it for the end. That'll be my quote for the end. I will make sure I read
Yes.
that.
And it is. This is why the enemy is after the babies, because
Yeah.
I can control. I always tell people, stop getting mad when you send your kids to Caesar and they come home a Roman,
Exactly.
because you're allowing them to impart in them what you
Yeah.
really don't want them to have.
Yeah. And are we really surprised when we've damaged our children so badly that as adults they're making really poor decisions and some of them fatal? I mean, are we really that surprised? Yes, it doesn't condone the adult choices. And where did they get the motivation, the initiative to make the right choices, right? I mean,
Right.
they've grown up being told they're broken, that they're at fault for all of the horrible things in the world, or they've learned that rage is the best way to communicate, even though we know it's not, right? Whatever the case may be, when they become adults, yes, they're responsible for their choices. And if they start out in a disadvantaged place, what do we expect when that's what we get? That's the product.
Right. And not only that, even with critical thinking, right? Like today we have in practice, we had a young man who had to get a release from the doctor to say he's able to come back. Well, he got the release, but it was at home. And the trainer and I was saying, well, I can't let you practice because the trainer is not going to let you practice because you got to have a release.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to practice. I said, do some critical thinking. And he was like, well, what are you talking about? I said, think about it. You want to practice. You need the slip. Is your mom at home? Yeah. Okay, do some critical thinking. And he's sitting there and he's like, okay, what are you telling me to do? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, call your mom. I had to teach him critical thinking. Call your mom, have her take a picture of the paper, text it to you, show it to the trainer, and then you can bring her the original tomorrow. Oh, we took critical thinking away from the kids.
Yeah, and you think
On
like
purpose.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we didn't, in the education system, we didn't want to raise a bunch of critical thinkers because guess what? They'd start questioning the authorities. They'd start questioning our representatives that we sent to Washington, D.C. They would start questioning the status quo and who in power and authority over 1 million, 2 million, 3 million people wants to give that back, right?
Mhm.
If you create, and that's why the founding fathers stated very clearly, this Constitution is for a moral and virtuous people. And a moral and virtuous people, part of that comes with the critical thinking process. You have to be critical thinker in order to be moral and religious, right? And moral and virtuous, I should say. Because you have to understand how the world works. You have to understand who's in charge of it. And you have to understand how to explain that to other people. And so if we don't have that, which we don't in this nation, and it feels like there is a movement in that direction again. I'm definitely sensing that movement, and it's going to be a lot of hard work because there are how many generations that we've had where we've slowly but surely dumbed them down until they're not even knowing that they should ask questions or that there should be questions that need to be asked.
And that's why things had to come to a catalyst point, and that's what ever since 2020 yes, part of this is my conscious choosing of finding the opportunity in the challenge. I have done my best to try to remind people that 2020 was the biggest blessing in disguise we ever could have had. Because when we were goal setting, and I know you guys have heard me say this numerous times, there may be new listeners. Those of us who do vision boards or set a goal or intention for a new year, well, when 2020 came along, it was very easy to pick 2020 vision, clear vision for the year 2020 because of the name of the year it was. Well, we got that in a very painful, blunt kind of way. We got clear vision. We were given the choice to pick which words are not working.
Well,
we've been sitting at that fork in the road for so long that 2020 forced us to pick which path down that fork we were going to go.
Some of us.
Are we going to pick the freedom shift or are we going to pick the force shift, right?
But you got to remember, it was only some of us because some of us was already there. Okay.
Oh, right. And I mean more like us as a collective.
In general,
I know. That's why I say some of us, because when they start to look at the other ones, and I use myself for an example, when they looked and saw I didn't close the church, when they looked and saw I'm having service at the state capitol, when they found out nobody was catching COVID, when they come to those kind of services, then they started asking questions. And then and then
it took those of us who were already choosing which side of the fork we were going to go down, which path. It took those to help the ones still at the fork to see that they had a choice.
Right, but let me rephrase it for you, okay? Those of us, we didn't have that fork in the road because our mind was already made up. We already know. So we didn't have that. It was the ones that were stuck at the fork of the road, saw in the way we was going, and started to question, why are you going this way when majority of the people is going that way? You see what I'm saying? So when they saw us, we didn't get to the fork of the road and say, let me see which way, any, mini, miny, mo. No, we didn't do that. We was like,
well, I would argue that at some point in your past, though, you did make a choice. Because I do remember you, Dr. King, saying something about how you were a wild stallion and some about bars and stuff. You at one point did have a fork. It might have been 20 years ago.
The stallion just found a mate. That's all.
Okay. Well, then Rosie helped me pick.
You have to understand. The stallion just found the mate. Because he always
that was a fork in the road, though. That was a fork in the road. You could have chosen to go a different road.
You chose to go with the mates.
But listen, but you know
every decision you make eliminates other decisions, right? So if you think about
here's the thing, though. The reason it's not a fork in the road because I knew I was going to do it God's way, and if I was going to do it God's way, there is no fork in the road.
Well, but you at one point did not have God's way in the forefront of your thoughts. And so when you chose God's way, you chose that fork.
But you got to remember, when I didn't have God in my life, there was still no fork because I was over on this side doing everything and anything.
But what was that moment where you decided to start following God's path? That moment was the fork.
No, I disagree. I disagree.
You could have continued to live the lifestyle you were living in. You made a choice.
I made a choice to make a U-turn, not a fork in the road.
Okay, we can argue semantics of how the road is shaped, but either way, you chose to go.
See, here's the thing: I made a U-turn and decided to go the other way, not that way, the other way.
He
That
just
was the
has to
wrong.
be right. That's
Oh,
that's
yeah.
just him being a man, being stubborn.
No,
Should we
I
get
think
Rosie
Anyway,
into the
so we're
conversation?
talking about the
We'll see.
Wisconsin Constitution, right?
Yeah.
okay. We're gonna talk about the Wisconsin Constitution because the women's, you know how you women
Speaking
get.
of forks in the road, let's get back to ours.
See, the fork in the road is 2 against 1, and so
Oh yeah,
so
you poor beleaguered man.
so I'm going to digress, and I'm not going to use my favorite word because every time I use my favorite word, Sarah has to take a leave of absence because there's a new bun in the oven. So I'm not going to use my favorite word.
I'm not pregnant. No freaking way. There's
No.
nothing there.
I said if I use my favorite word.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not
Well, God's gonna have to laugh, so you can use your favorite word because he'll have to laugh at me in order to make another bun in the oven appear.
So, and Amber act like she don't know because every time I use that word, she turned red. So I don't even know why she don't know.
No, if it has to do with your stallion days, we both turn red. So,
Yeah.
All right, state constitution. Here we go. So
all right, let's go to the state.
With the preamble.
Let's go to the state.
We had started with the preamble and we talked about a couple of the Declaration of Rights. We talked about the interesting thing about most of the state constitutions is that, or most, if not all, I think all, have a Declaration of Rights or a Bill of Rights, right? And interestingly enough, when the federal constitution first got taken up as a possibility, one of the biggest problems that people had with it was there's no Bill of Rights. And on the federal level, there's got to be a Bill of Rights because this is a massive government that could become even more massive. We're trying to restrain it as much as possible. But again, we need a moral and virtuous citizenry. And so we need to remind the people, these are your rights. The government can't touch them, right? And so interestingly enough, the state constitutions were like, yeah, we're just putting in a Bill of Rights. We're not even going to, it's not even going to be a question. We just have to figure out which ones we're going to put in. So, so in some state constitutions, it's in other places, but in our Wisconsin state constitution, it is Article 1, right after the preamble, which states that God Almighty is the one responsible for giving us the freedoms that we so appreciate and inspiring us to create governments to protect those. So we have obviously the equality right. Everybody is equal and we're free and independent. We're equal under the law. We have life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And to secure them, governments are instituted. Basically, it sounds exactly like, our declaration and our constitution, just, and because again, Wisconsin Constitution came after the federal Constitution was already in place. So it wasn't one of the early ones. Virginia Constitution was the kind of the precursor to our federal Constitution. So we got that. Second article, we talked about slavery is prohibited, except in cases of criminal punishment being meted out to pay back, to make restitution for, right? And we talked about that as well as, at one point, the due process of law meant that if you were rightfully indicted and found guilty of a crime, you had to make restitution for it. It wasn't just you sitting rotting away in jail on the taxpayer dime. It was you're going to pay back what you stole. And if you can't pay it back, with money or with other compensation, then you pay it back with your life, right? Like that was the whole reasoning and rationale for that. Anyway. So that was that. And we talked about the free speech and libel and the responsibilities of our rights versus, so when we have rights that are given to us by God, right? No government on earth can legally or lawfully take them away from us, no matter how much they, gripe and moan about it. And part of those rights come with the responsibilities behind them. We take on the consequences of, if we have free speech, but if we shout fire in a crowded theater, we're gonna have to deal with the consequences of that. So
right.
So that was kind of like, I think we kind of went back and forth. I noticed something, Amber. Did you know in the Wisconsin state constitution, this is kind of skipping ahead to the very end, it still has the amendment in the constitution stating that a marriage is between a man and a woman?
I did not know that.
it's still in there.
Go
And then they
Wisconsin.
go under they go under it with all of these, precedents, Supreme Court cases stating, oh, well, this Constitution violates these whatevers,
Mhm.
but it's still in our Wisconsin state constitution that marriage is between a man and a woman. So I thought that was interesting.
Which, there's a huge argument that I happen to be a big proponent of. KrisAnne Hall as well. What we call case law is not law. It's
Yes.
a case decision or
Yep.
opinion.
Yep.
But opinions in specific scenarios do not automatically become law. There is already a procedure for how to create a law.
Yep.
So
Legislation.
even though to win in court, having case law still helps, it
Mhm.
shouldn't.
It should.
And
Yeah.
there are people
We
who
talk about
are
the precedent. Yeah.
case law precedents. And there are people I'm hearing that are winning cases just on using the law itself,
In its
not
purest
under
form.
color of law, but the law itself
Yep.
as enough proof to stand on one's rights.
Yeah, exactly.
It is hard to find. It is hard to extract from.
Well, and it's hard because it's hard to get people who are involved in the law giving or law judicial judicial actions that actually understand that, right? They've come so far away from that in their education. And again, we're teaching people what to think, not how to think. And so these people are going, oh, we're just doing exactly what they told us in law school, right? And so they're not critically thinking and going, oh, yeah, that's a good point. That's a law, and case law is only a precedent that we can utilize as a tool, but it should not be the end all be all decision.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah.
So then, in other words, these folks that we elected to make law don't know what the Constitution says and writing laws to go against your constitutional rights.
Yep. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. We need to start training those people to take on those positions or become those people ourselves. And I love how, Amber, you're doing that. How to win in court without a lawyer, right? Like if we know our rights, if we know how to argue for the law, then that's going to give us a massive advantage over people who have no idea what they're fighting against. Because and this was something we talked about last week, was that it is so hard to see the big picture and not get overwhelmed and discouraged.
Right.
Because there are so many powerful people in government today that are just
behind government.
And behind government, exactly.
Yes.
And we have to talk about the global impact, right? Because it's not just American government and representatives who are involved in this. It's on the global scale. We're getting influence from outside of our own sovereign nation, which makes me question whether we have a sovereign nation anymore, right? And those are the things that we need to
there. It's just much more underground than we.
Right.
And that's and that's where we have to go back to the basics and say, okay, I can't throw every single starfish back in the ocean, but there are enough starfish around me that I can tackle those, right? And what is my mission and purpose? What is mine to do? And then go and do that and find. I say it all the time: find your sweet spot, right? Find where you shine and where you can influence and impact others.
Right.
And I will say that.
Wait a minute. Do you know I found out that in some countries it is against the law to ship our food to that country?
Well, yeah. Yep.
Well, yeah, because our food is harmful and toxic and poisonous.
I know, but ain't that something though? We got other countries.
Good for them, honestly. Good for them. I don't want to eat half of our food either. Actually,
I know, but we got other countries say no, we don't want y'all food.
Yeah.
Good. They've wisened up to how much harm it's causing. There are communities that we consider third world that have largely been untouched by first world stuff. I'll just say stuff because I'm not going to say resources.
Yeah.
That when they become exposed to our food, to our quote medicine, to our products and
To our
our
Western
all these different things, they
influence.
start having heart attacks. They start having diabetes and
Cancer.
neurological disorders that they
Yeah.
never had until
Yeah.
Western folks
Well, and
invaded.
isn't that interesting? Because in America, it is rare that you hear about somebody dying of natural causes of old age, right? Like just
Old age,
going
yeah.
to sleep
Yep.
and right, like you hear cancer, you hear after a long battle with some sort of disease, right? Whatever the case may be,
Or died suddenly.
right, or died unexpectedly.
You ain't
We have
right.
no
I knew
idea
it was
why,
coming.
right?
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, and so we hear these cases and we're like, what is going on? You know, like, but in other countries they don't have that. They have, hey, guess what, we've got
There's
people
a
who are
viral
dying in
video.
their beds at old age and are almost as what did they when Moses passed away, right? When in the Bible, when Moses died, there's a phrase in there that when you go back to the original Hebrew, it basically says this guy still got it going on. Like basically he was old and virile. And that was like the original, like he died. He did not need Viagra. Yeah, exactly. he was still basically in the prime of life, but God took him at that point because there was kind of a punishment. He couldn't see the promised land. But I mean, we don't hear that in America very often anymore.
Right. And if you look at it, right, when you look at it, when they was dying, they was having babies at the age of 300. You know, and you sitting there like, wait a minute, you what? It's like, I'm like, so what did they have? Herbs and fruits. That's all they had.
Yeah, all natural ingredients, nothing that was added. It was interesting at our county board meeting, they passed an update to one of the ordinances dealing with animal waste, basically putting more pressure and more regulations on farmers, right? And our argument wasn't, no, we should have anarchy and everybody should do their own thing and we should never penalize people for polluting the waters or whatever like that. It wasn't that. It was the fact that, one, you're upping the fines. These small family farms are already bogged down under your regulations handed down from the EPA or FDA, whatever the case may be, all of these government resources, and they're bogged down with these regulations. And then you're upping the fines and you're putting the complete authority to decide on these things in the hands of one person. And we don't see a problem with that, right? And so we had several of us, I think 6 out of the 19 of us, voted against this. But when you got most of the people going, oh, it's not going to cause a problem, this person would never bully a farmer or would never, be lack in integrity. And it's like, okay, maybe that's true. What about the next person who gets into that office? What about the next person after that? We've just opened the door wide and given complete authority to one person who's been unelected and is farthest from the people that they represent. How is this a good thing? And they do not think in that way. It's so sad and so frustrating to be part of some of these conversations because we're the bad guys for voting against it. And we're thinking long term. The government is an arm of force. It is by its nature, it's an enforcement tool. We better be really darn careful how we use it.
Well, and anytime you give someone that much authority that has not been elected, that's a problem all by itself. Because now that person in their head says everything goes through me. Right? So give me some money or I'm going to regulate you, right?
Yeah.
Somebody a big farmer can come and say, here's some money. I need you to mess with this mom and pop farm over here and attack them, And so whoever voted yes never, ever read the Constitution.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. This is where that due process comes in, right? if you're going to treat somebody like a criminal before they've even faced their accusers, before they've faced the arm of the law, like actual law enforcement, not just some petty tyrant who's been given authority by the government, right? That was stolen. I'm beating this dead horse, I know, but this gets my goat so badly. I'm like, when I am as a,
you say your goats?
yeah, it's probably a white person phrase, I don't know.
Okay.
Or maybe it's a Midwestern, I don't know, whatever the case may be. Regardless,
okay.
It boils me when I am sitting there listening to governors, right? We were put in those representative positions as a legislative body to make sure that we are protecting and defending the rights of our citizens, and we're more concerned about getting those very rare and like out on the fringe group of people. I mean, seriously, some of these violations, there's like some years it's 0, some years it's 2, but we're opening up the door to abuse that power and authority so badly without ever thinking about who are the ones who are going to pay for it the most. It's not going to be those big farmers who can dole out, $20,000 and not even blink. It's going to be those small family farms that, again, and we're going back to what happened during COVID. It wasn't Walmart and Target, and I mean, that Target self-destructed on its own afterwards, but it wasn't Walmart and Target and these big corporations, Amazon, who lost. It was the families, the small businesses, the family farms, the family mom and pop stores, right? They were the ones who lost because a tyrannical government decided we can mandate and create laws out of our butts just because we have that, because the people don't understand we don't have that power.
Oh wow!
Yes, you can laugh at that. Like
that is.
No, I'm in my soapbox mode. So
that's a new one too. Now, okay.
Yeah.
You know what I saw that was sad, and I got to talk about this since we're talking about the Constitution and things.
Mm-hmm.
So many people heard something and trying to run with it now, where they're saying, and I'm gonna tell you why I say this. But they're saying no longer that they are a citizen. They changed their name and they're.
Oh yeah, what is that? Yeah, what is that called, Amber? I know you've heard a little bit about
various
that.
flavors of what we call status correction. There's American national, state national, sovereign citizen, sovereigns. There's 1 or 2 others.
Right.
Yeah, I call them status correction.
I call it learn it first before you try to use it. Because this guy went to court. They called his name. He says, "My name is William L. I'm representing, this person." And they was like, the judge was like, "Okay, so I just used John Johnson. So are you John Johnson?" "No, I'm William L." And they was like, "Okay, then we're going to mark John Johnson." He said, "Wait a minute." He says, "I'm not a citizen of the United States. I'm not that." And they said, "Okay, so you want to go this route? We're going to go this route with you." So they said, "What we're going to do is make it that John Johnson missed his court dates, and we're going to put a warrant out for John Johnson." He said, "Well, I'm here, and I'm here to represent." And they was like, "No, are you John Johnson or not?" He says, "I'm William L." So he tried to use the nationalist thing, right? And then when the judge said that, he said, "Well, you're messing with my constitutional rights." And the judge says, "But you're not a citizen of America. How am I messing with your constitutional rights?" So, and I'm seeing it's more and more happening right now with people that really don't understand what to do, how to do it, and they would have been safer being that citizen under the Constitution than they would have been trying to use something they didn't know how to use it.
And that's KrisAnne Hall has actually touched on that. I have the link in one of my resources for when I'm talking to people who are considering or exploring that path. I'm like, you're a grown adult. You do your due diligence. You do your research. Double check it. Cross verify. And then if you still feel this is the right choice for you, so be it. But I should say, and someone I look up to, KrisAnne Hall, has done a video on state nationals at least, and discussing the actual details of it according to the USC
consequences.
codes or whatever it is. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But and essentially listing like the requirements and the cons. There's really no pros to it based on the way she presented it. And that's where the people teaching status correction, they are no better in my mind and my heart than these influencers who just do the stupidest things just to make a buck.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
And what about the other groups? The ones that's trying to, oh God, what they call it? Adjourn.
like the assembly.
The assembly, yeah, where they trying to take their counties back, or
Oh, it's basically like a parallel Wisconsin government.
yeah, and they doing
Yeah,
They're basically trying to restore the republic from the ground up. I haven't done enough research on that because I'm like, I do know, I have seen when I've seen like the Constitution from when the U.S. corporation became a thing, when it started to exist. So I know that there is this thing called the corporation, and I do believe that that does exist. I've seen the laws and the tax codes discussing it. So I do see where there is some essence of the real constitutional republic is here somewhere, and it's kind of being buried by all of this statutory law through the corporation. And I have not been able to find where the truth lies there.
Well,
I feel like they're onto something.
Right.
I still can't fully buy into it though, because I haven't seen, okay, if this is true, if we do get, what is it, Sarah, 38 states for the Convention
of States?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be able to basically, do something with that majority regarding the corporation, how? Like, what does that look like? Like, and they can't answer those questions for me.
Well,
and I'm like,
the other thing is, they forget every county is separate, and every county shouldn't look the same. But they want their groups out there want all the counties to look the exact. And when you do that, then you're not settling, and I hope I'm using the right word, they're not settling the counties right, because each county is going to look the same, where Milwaukee County and Jackson County is not the same. And it can't be, and it cannot, the only part of Milwaukee County and Jackson County can be governed the same way is under the principles of God.
Yeah.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
Any other way you try to govern it to the same, it's not a cookie cut one size fit all, because you got different things. But you get people that they get a whiff of something and they smell it and then they want to run with it, and then they get caught up, and now they're trying to figure out what to do. And the first thing they do is they want to run back to the Constitution, which you was trying to run away from. So, it's like, people, sit your butt down. Learn the Constitution. Learn the Wisconsin Constitution. Learn the United States Constitution. Learn the Word of God. And then try to govern yourself. Don't govern yourself in something and then you want to bounce back and say, hey, you're messing with my constitutional rights. I thought you didn't have no rights.
Yeah.
That's y'all fault.
Which I will sort of play the opposite side for a split second here.
She loves playing opposite side.
And it's coming from KrisAnne Hall, because she's the one that first brought the light bulb moment up. The Constitution doesn't give us our rights. It protects and defends them. There are God-given natural rights by birth.
Right.
So whether
Yes.
or not you are a citizen, you are technically still protected by the Constitution just by virtue of being here.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you're breaking
But
certain laws, those laws you're breaking, but the Constitution doesn't give us our rights. They are
Right.
ours, and it only
right. So now
lists
let
some of
me play the other advocate on your advocate. So if that's the case, and you're telling me you're not a citizen of the United States, because that's what they say, they denounce their citizenship,
them. Mhm.
you're illegal. Go back where you come from, but they ain't got nowhere to go.
And that's how some of them actually get in prison indefinitely, or at least for very long periods of time, because there's nowhere to deport them to.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of detained
Send
indefinitely.
them to Tawanami Bay, and I guarantee you they'll accept their citizenship real fast.
Yeah.
But you know, our God-given rights. This is why I said it. Our God-given rights, God's value, you know, God's laws, God's principle. If we govern ourselves by those laws, right, then it's easy to honor the Constitution. It's easier to honor the Wisconsin Constitution. Why? Because if I'm not worrying about violating their laws, I got to make sure I don't violate God's law. Because if I
Yeah.
violate God's law, I'm automatically going to violate these laws.
Yeah. And I love how the Wisconsin State Constitution acknowledges that aspect of it. In if you read through the Bill of Rights, or I should say the Declaration of Rights in the Wisconsin one, multiple times it talks about Almighty God. And that's something you don't see in the federal Constitution, which I wish that it had, right? I wish that there had been more acknowledgement, but they were trying to do it a certain way in order to kind of, I think part of, again, it went back to that moral and virtuous society. They were expecting that the people who read the Constitution would, one, not divorce it from the Declaration of Independence, which does mention Almighty God multiple times, and two, that they would have the morality and virtue of Almighty God that would continue through the generations. So maybe they were a little short-sighted there. We could argue back and forth a little bit, but you know, if somebody knows the biblical Constitution, they can look at the or the Wisconsin Constitution and the federal Constitution and go, "Oh yeah, this was totally written because they knew their Bibles, right? Like this is why it was
And
this way."
for anyone who tries to unmarry the Declaration and the Constitution, as you were saying, Sarah, I would invite you to go through David Barton's content, the original intent book, and I would highly encourage you to get a copy of the Founder's Bible. The articles he puts in there about the founders, resources and references to actual writings by our founding fathers and mothers, discussing what they were doing at that time, discussing why they were doing what they were doing at that time. There would be zero doubt in your heart, in your mind, anywhere, that every single one of the founding fathers, and not just the top names, all of them were men and women of faith.
Yep. Exactly.
Different denominations, yes, but they all were men and women of faith.
Right.
And when they talked about the protection of religious liberty, they were talking about faith in God, Almighty God. And that, like, Wisconsin Constitution even states that the right of every person to worship Almighty God, right? If we take it from its original intent, we weren't talking about Buddha, we weren't talking about, you know, Muhammad, we weren't talking about anybody else. Now, this protects our religious rights, even for a Muslim, even for a Buddhist, right?
Right.
But it is acknowledging that the worship of Almighty God is first and foremost, right?
Yes.
And this is where etymology comes in, the history of language, the origin of our words, because people twist the word providence to say that those individuals who use that word weren't referring to the Christian version of God. It's like, no. When you start to look at the origins of that word and how it was used in context at that time in history, you freaking betcha it was referring to the one true God. Like, there's no question.
Well,
I was digging in.
I'm waiting on you two to give me my 40 acres in Amelia.
To what? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I said, all I'm doing is waiting on you two to give me my 40 acres and a mule.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Look at Amber. Amber don't got nothing to say.
Nope.
So let me stop playing, because you know, when we think about how serious it is to get people, we got to go back to the teaching the values of God, right? The morals of God.
Principles, yep.
The
Foundational principles.
Yes, and
Yeah.
so it will make a person check themselves to make sure that they are, doing it. Rather, I don't care how a person always says, "Well, I'm an atheist," and every time something happens, even though they're atheists, they'll say, "Oh God." Why you hollering, "Oh God"?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because the innate, there is an innate understanding in each one of us, because we are image bearers of God. That is
Right.
how he
Bless you when
created us.
someone sneezes.
Yep, exactly. And we cannot get away from that. We cannot get away from the image bearer, no matter how hard we try, no matter how much we reject it. We cannot get away from being an image bearer of God. We can dirty it up as much as we want, and that image bearer is still there in the form of that innocent child, right, that we started out as. And that's who we need to go back to. And again, bringing it back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, if we start teaching these principles, the Christ worldview principles, right from the very get-go with our children, and then they start spreading that word with their children and their children's children, right? We create this legacy. And then when we're reading the constitutions created by godly men, we're going to see them through the lens of that Christ worldview. We're going to see them through the biblical lens, and we're going to be able to understand and defend our God-given rights. We're going to be able to understand the law. I mean, you look at the craziness of some of these people who are supposedly experts interpreting the law, and they have no freaking clue what they're doing, right? They can have as many letters after their name as they want, and they have no idea what they're doing, because they don't have that principled worldview, that Christ worldview that gives them the foundation out of which everything else springs. So
Yes. And so, in other words, what you're saying, we got a lot of work to do.
yep.
A lot of work to do. And this is why. Oh, I got to tell you. So I'm at this building and I'm walking with the CEO and the head of security, right? And we walking through and I see the sign, no concealed carry, right? No weapons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say to them, do you know, with that sign up, you are taking responsibility for every life in here? That if somebody gets shot, they're going to be able to sue you. And they was like, what? I said, yes, that's what that law says. That law don't say you just telling a person they can't bring a gun in. That law says we are now responsible for every life that comes through this door.
Yeah, it's the consequences of the choices that you make.
Right. Yep. And I said, but if that sign wasn't up, they can't sue you. But long as that sign is there, they can sue you.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was like, really? And so the security guy, he went and looked it up. And when he saw me today, he said, wow, man, you was right. I looked that thing up. And I said, well, people don't understand because they never got the understanding of that. They're thinking they're safe if they put the sign up.
Yeah.
And I said, so I had to get naked to come in here. But I normally don't like getting naked coming in here. I like to be dressed when I'm in here because you never know what'll happen. That's why I told her when I go to the movies with my daughter, I'm dressed.
Yeah.
If we go to a restaurant, I'm dressed.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm not going to be a statistic.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
you can understand your rights and how to defend them.
Right. And these are the things where these teaching moments where we have to take, and say, okay, how are we going to address this, and how are we going to address this, and what do the law says? Am I in my rights to do this, or am I violating somebody else's rights by what I want to do? All of
Yep.
this stuff we look at, and when you look at I think we need to do a Facebook post with the Wisconsin Constitution that says every time it says Almighty God. I think we need to put that on there and say, I dare y'all to make, you know what I'm saying? Just put it up and say, did you know? And then put it up there, and then watch how many people is for the Wisconsin Constitution and how many is not.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them will probably say, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Or
they'll say, well, they didn't mean, the Christian God, right? And they'll go into that argument. We're like, okay, yeah, let's go back to 1848 and let's go look into that for a while.
Well, I would even like to say it this way. I'll tell you what, then. You call on your God and tell your God to do something to me, and then I call on my God to show himself to you.
Okay, was that Elijah or Elisha? I get those two mixed up. I think it was Elijah.
Yes. So, then we can see who's serving a real God, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's just something that a lot of people don't realize, that God, the hand of God has always been over this nation, because this nation acknowledged him first.
Yep. And if we want to keep his blessings, if we want to keep our prosperity and keep our nation, our sovereign nation, then we need to go back to acknowledging his sovereignty over us.
Yes. That's why I say I moved to Arkansas, because their governor is on point. She ain't playing that pronoun crap, and she made them put the 10 Commandments back in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the kind of governor we need in Wisconsin. So you'd be like, all right,
good luck, Dr. King. Good luck.
I know. Wait.
I'll vote for you.
Hold on, I'm gonna do this for Sarah too. Wait, Sarah, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Amber, you ready? Why are you shaking your head? No.
I'm not, because I was gonna pull up a quote quick, and I didn't have it ready yet.
He's got the ticker tape on the bottom, though. That's what he was going for.
Oh.
I got my quote ready, so I'm ready.
I was just gonna.
There you go, Amber.
The where knowledge is diffused, but I'll go. I guess I will not have a quote though.
Wait, hold tight. I got to put you on the screen. You know the rule. You ain't been going that long.
You got time to look for it. He'll put me up first.
Yeah, going to get you a quote. I will put Sarah up first. There you go.
All right. So I'm going to repeat to what I said at the beginning to tie things up. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And that was Frederick Douglass. And he stated that very plainly, knowing that our next generations are the future and hope of the nation in which we live. And if we create the broken and wounded individuals in childhood, then we have to spend that much more money and that much more time and that much more effort and work to try to repair what was broken. And in the meantime, we deal with things like school shootings and crime rates going up in big cities, and husbands and in some cases wives beating on their spouse, right? We've got so much going on in this world today because we have created broken men and women, and our job is to turn that around, starting with our own families, understanding the biblical constitution first, working our way through our state and federal constitutions, and understanding the law, understanding that our God-given rights are protected no matter what the tyrannical or the petty tyrants say. They're protected by God, and therefore we need to know and understand how we can defend them against a tyrant. And that's what I got. Hopefully that was enough time for Amber to find her quote.
It was.
Good.
I wanted to pull up that Samuel Adams quote, and I'm going to read it. No people will tamely surrender their liberties, nor can any be easily subdued when knowledge is diffused and virtue is preserved. On the contrary, when people are universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they will sink under their own weight without aid of foreign invaders. It's basically saying, stay ignorant and you're going to sink. When knowledge is diffused, when knowledge is shared, when we have collective wisdom of these truths, we will succeed in maintaining and asserting and defending our rights. When we know better, we can do better. So
Amen.
let's keep knowing better and doing better.
Oh, wow. That was so touching.
Oh gosh.
So mine is coming from my book. And it's coming from the 9th chapter of the book, Lessons from Biblical Leaders. I'm going to quote out of that one. Yes. And I'm coming from page 66 of the book. Okay, everybody's showing the books. Hey. So David showed what it meant to lead with a heart after God's own heart, using his authority to unite the nation of Israel and advance God's purpose. And I think that's something that we are as leaders have to do now to bring people back to God. We have to learn how to unite. And the best way to unite is by educating and by showing people that the way we've been going is wrong. We don't supposed to promote hate. We don't supposed to accept confusion. We don't supposed to what's the other word I want to use? Come to your pity party with a present. We're supposed to come with some truth to help you to be a better person. And I think that the only way to set the people free and enjoy freedom, the Bible says, know the truth.
The truth will set you free.
And the truth will make you free. And so I believe that as we continue the podcast and as we continue talking about different freedoms, and I know a lot of time was taken today because we needed to talk about what happened in Madison and how it's important that we listening to our babies, looking for signs of depression or looking for signs of suicidal, of looking for signs of anger, or rejection or whatever it might be, that we can be there for them and then give them a safe place to be vulnerable with us.
Yeah. Life into their world.
Yes. And so as leaders, we got to have the compassion of God and the compassion and love of Christ so we can step into these dark areas and shine that light.
Amen.
That's my soapbox for the night. Look, don't do that because my students do that. The players do that. And I'd be like, wait a minute, what is this?
I'm giving you snaps. I'm giving you props.
I know that. I had to learn what that meant. I thought
we've been doing that since I was in college, and that was like 15 years ago already.
I know, but listen, you have to understand, when they first did that to me, I'm thinking they're being sarcastic because I didn't know they were. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm talking to y'all. They said, no, we just let you know we're in agreement. And I'm like, oh, okay.
No, when you need to worry is when they do the fake enthusiasm clap.
I'll make them run 15 laps if they did that.
Or the world's smallest violin, right?
I always do that. I'll be like, you know what this is?
World's smallest violin.
But you gotta learn. You're learning the snaps. I say it, even in church now. When you're in a church group and you're having a conversation, they do it. I'd be like,
you know where that originated from, the whole snaps thing? Do you know where that came from?
From poetry, right?
Yeah, poetry cafes. instead of applauding, they would do this quieter snap thing.
So,
Like, yeah, I dig that. I drive, you know.
right.
Interesting.
So I'm learning, you know.
You try to stay hip and cool, and
I mean, you gotta understand.
you still got Riz.
You have to understand. I came here on the Mayflower, you know, so I had to, you know, I gotta get caught up to date and stuff, you know. But I'm learning. But ladies and gentlemen, I have a question though. Are we doing a show before Christmas or after Christmas? Are we doing one the week of Christmas, which is next week, or should we just bypass that and do one last one for the year, the week of the New Year?
Yeah, let's do the week of the New Year because I've got family coming into town and a bunch of stuff happening next week. So
good, because I wanted to rest anyway. I'm going to. You know, I don't agree with everything Stephen A. say, but I love his platform, how he tell the truth, whether you like him or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to start a podcast where I'm sitting at the desk at the studio, and I'm just going. I'm not holding back nothing. I'm going to rip. But I'm going to do it in love, and I'm going to do it with the truth. Okay.
Yeah.
And share things, you know, whether it's spiritual, where church folks get mad at me, or political, and all the political side get mad at me. You ever want to see? Here's what's going to happen. You ever want to see the Democrats and Republicans ever come together? Watch when I run for governor.
Yeah.
They're going to be a team together. They're going to be like, we are not going to let this young man do this to us. You know, I'd be like, because now we get to tell the truth on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Be like, did you know if the Republican had some cojones, it would have been constitutional carry instead of concealed carry?
Did you know we live in a constitutional republic and not a democracy?
Yes.
Did you know there's a difference between public and private domains?
Yes. Did you?
Oh, here. I'm doing this, and I'm not being sarcastic at all. That was like a boom, boom, boom right there.
I didn't either when he started.
And that's something that we have to do, you know, be letting people know. Did you know? The whole campaign is, we should have T-shirts say, did you know?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Did you know you can think for yourself? Did you know that the Democrat is the left wing, and the Republican is the right wing, but it's the same bird, and that bird is not an eagle, it's a buzzard?
Or a turkey. Yep. I like it. Let's do it.
Yeah, we got to. And then you got to come to the Capitol as the constitutional advisor. You have to be there making sure that everything go past. So before I sign anything, you got to read it to make sure it's lining up with the Constitution.
Yes. That will be my favorite job in the world, Dr. King.
And then if it doesn't line up with the Constitution, I won't sign it.
Awesome.
I tell them, take it back and do it again. Then we'll say we're not sending money to the federal government. We're going to use that money for our own state education. Get rid of the education system.
And maybe not take money from the federal government either for education.
Oh, we definitely won't take money from the federal government.
It's a great idea.
We definitely won't do that because of the fact we'll still be under that plantation. We're trying to come away from plantations.
By the way, Sarah, do you recall offhand, you don't have to research it if you can't remember, the name of the person who had that quote about the Board of Education, whatever it's called back then, about creating compliant workers?
I know the name.
Wasn't that dude that said that, like Rockefeller's assistant or something?
Someone high up, yes.
Yeah, someone very well connected to Rockefeller. The reason I mention that is I'm reading Think and Grow Rich right now. Mostly out of curiosity.
I love that book.
I'm enjoying it. And it's referencing some of those big names. And I'm just like, ooh, and that's the exact stuff that they were trying to suppress in public schools. is what's in that book.
But not only that, did you know every medical university, the Rockefellers them gave money and put somebody on their board?
Oh yeah.
They bought them all off.
And they changed the curriculum. Yep. Our model of
They
education in
outlawed
America.
African Americans and women from their medical schools.
Right.
Yep.
Did you know Spelman is his wife maiden name?
Yep.
Yeah. The name of Spelman used to be Atlanta Baptist Women Seminary.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. It was let's see.
She done found it.
Yeah, it was Frederick T. Gates. He was put in place by Rockefeller and he was a business advisor. This isn't the full quote, but he says, "We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of whom we have an ample supply."
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait. What's the name?
And this was where is it now?
Gates.
Yep, Frederick T. Gates. Oh, I wonder if he's related to Bill Gates.
Right.
Interesting. But no, anyway, he was kind of Rockefeller's business advisor, and Rockefeller and Carnegie put massive amounts of money into the education system, just like they did with the medical system, because they wanted to sell a product. They wanted to sell good little factory workers who would work in their businesses and take their medicines and get sick and die, but before they get sick and die, they would create new little workers.
Hey, did you know he was a Baptist minister?
Yes. Yeah, just because you have minister after your name does not mean, or before your name, whatever, does not mean that you are a minister of God. You might be a minister of Rockefeller, but
like Al Sharpton.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, Rockefeller was the one who created the General Education Board. Thank you, Rockefeller.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about most of these arms of the bureaucratic arms of the government were created by multimillionaires who had massive influence in the elites in government and basically bullied their way into having an influence in the administrative industrial complex of America. That's where we get our incorporated America rather than in we the people America. So, yep.
You know, he just said, I just put up one of his quotes and it says, "You must keep up with it. You must distribute it faster than it grows. If you do not, it will crush you, your children, your children's children's."
Yep. Think about this. Frederick T. Gates, Rockefeller, Carnegie, these people who had so much influence. Where do we see that same influence in the Bible? Old Testament, Pharaoh. What did he do when the Israelites were rising up? They weren't rising up to revolt at that point. They were just.
Oh, you mean maybe during Moses' time or when Moses was getting born?
What did he do? He created good little factory workers who were uneducated and out in the fields all day and too tired to think about rising up.
Well, and even before that, I shouldn't say before that, but even just surrounding Moses' birth is what I was thinking. Mass genocide. What do you think is happening with all the stuff right now?
Look at you. See, we get our final quotes and you finna open up a whole new can of worms and
we'll save that for how about New Year's around that time frame. How's that?
Yeah.
Well, anybody can see on New Year's
I've got
Day?
my son and then we'll be driving, so we'll figure it out.
So the thing about it is, we'll figure out what day. Sarah, you just text in the group chat, and then we all come together and see what's good.
I'm pretty wide open the rest of the week after the 1st. So
after the 1st, I thought we was gonna do one last one before the 1st.
No, I'm sorry, after the 31st. That's what I meant.
After the 31st is the 1st, dear.
Yeah, well, I know,
but you said that week.
I said the week. I said the last week of this year.
Okay, I might have family on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, but on Monday I don't have anything going on.
Monday is the what, 2nd?
30th.
The 30th.
Oh,
The
Monday the 30th? Okay, well, let's probably do something the 30th then.
Does that not work for you, Amber?
It depends on what time.
Okay.
What's a
What
good
time
time?
are you looking? Because I'm pretty open that day.
I have a call I like to be on at 7 on Mondays.
Okay.
Preferably before that, because after that's going to be Jason's bedtime. So, if that's possible, but we'll figure it out.
So let's do. Can we do? Because
I mean, I could do afternoon on that day because, like I said, the first week of January I'm pretty free.
Since it's going to be a Monday, so can we do like noon or 1?
I could
That works
use
for me.
those.
Because I can do it.
Yeah.
I can do it from my office. I mean, from the new studio, and just have y'all on. I can be down by the office and do it.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. And
What
then
would you
So,
prefer,
should we
noon
say-
or 1?
your time or my time?
We're all the same time. All right,
No,
we're gonna
no,
do
Sarah,
our time.
you
How
need-
about let's do this? It's 1:00. We're gonna do 1:00. That'll give us time to
So
eat
we're going
lunch.
to tell him that it's noon so that he's actually there and ready by 1.
That works.
Okay.
And I've got it in pen now. It's permanent in my planner.
All right. So the 30th at 1.
Sounds good.
I either be at home or I'll probably be knowing me, I'm gonna be at the studio. So I'll probably do it at the studio.
Okay.
All righty.
Sounds good.
So we broke the rule again. We had 1 hour and 32 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
We're blaming Amber because Amber just got back. So we're gonna blame Amber.
True that, yo.
It's your fault.
Oh my goodness. I accept
So
the blame.
all right. So the 30th, we better get off. Or I'm gonna talk about something, and Sarah gonna get mad, and then she's gonna want to really go in and
I
then
get passionate, not mad. Well, yeah, I do get mad sometimes.
And
It
then
depends.
then I get a text from Jake, be like, "What are you doing?" I'll be like, "Sorry, Jake," but we thank everybody for watching. We thank everybody for coming on. Yeah, the Three Musketeers is back, so we in trouble. Y'all know, 2 women versus 1 man. You know, it's always a challenge. You know, but
You can handle yourself, Dr. King.
we stand strong. We stand strong. You know, once I get off the air, I cry. They went on. They attacked me again.
I'm gonna tell Rosie that.
Since when did you become a snowflake, Dr. King? Come on. Toughen up.
He's like the least snowflake person I know.
I know, that's why I had to tease him for crying.
Snowflake. Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. No, but everybody, we're about to go. We thank everybody for tuning in. We thank everybody for being with us until the 31st when we do the last
30th.
one of the year.
30th. Monday the 30th at 1 p.m. Central.
What did I say?
The
You said
31st, which is Tuesday.
Okay, the 30th. Monday the 30th
Monday the 30th of December at 1 p.m.
at 1 p.m.
Central.
Central Time.
And y'all making me think.
We're just keeping you honest.
No,
Mhm.
I know why I said what time, your time or mine, because when I'm with the doctors, they're an hour ahead of me.
Ah, yes.
So that's
I'm used to it anyways because most of the people I work with are different time zones, so I'm used to it.
okay. Just make sure you're in the right time zone on Monday the 30th.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
we'll be in
Will do.
Pennsylvania. That was so much fun. Sorry. All right. Zip. I'm done.
You sure? Because you know you ain't been here for a while, so you know you sure.
I got a book club to get to, so I need to run away.
She had a bear in the yard too.
Oh, fun.
The bear.
It was not a bear.
It wasn't a bear.
And we thought it was like water leaking. it ended up being my mom's vehicle making crazy noises with like a belt or something. It
Oh,
was not a
wow.
bear. You made that up.
In y'all neck of the woods, they're bears. So,
Yeah, there are.
Yes, there are.
so I'm
Apparently,
not.
we have elk too.
Yep.
The elk is worse than the bears.
Yeah. They warranted a resolution at our county board meeting. So
That we can shoot the bear. I mean the elk.
Elk.
no, that they've got to they're pleading with the state to help them mitigate the damage done to 300 plus acres of land, mostly farmers and small
Oh,
business owners. Yeah.
that makes sense.
I wonder.
And guess who brought the elk back into Jackson County?
Who?
It was before my time. I'm not taking responsibility for that.
I was going to say.
All right, you got to stop this, Dr. King. You got to stop this. We just leave. Let's go.
Wait a minute. You brought the elves back?
We didn't. I didn't. But the state DNR did. They're like, oh, we need to reintroduce the elk because this used to be their native land, and so therefore we're abusing them by keeping them out.
I'll tell you how effed up the DNR is and how much they need to just friggin' go. We were driving from my town near the interstate, and there's this one little piece of land that's like 4 acres that Zach hadn't hunted before because he doesn't tend to hunt public land.
Mm-hmm.
We barely pull in the driveway for the parking lot. And there's some random DNR truck or conservation truck there wondering what we're doing. Wondering what we're doing on public property, not even out of our vehicles, not even parked yet.
Yeah.
We were just there to look at the parking lot and look at the sign that's in the parking lot to see what the public land looked like, to see what the sign even said.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you guys up to? Like, right? Like they had anything better to do than to stalk I don't even know if it was 4 full acres. I'm just guessing. To stalk 4 acres of land when there's an entire county forest in Jackson County, an entire Clark County forest that they should be monitoring.
Yeah.
But you're worried about 4 acres.
Of course.
Well, it's just like land conservation. We're worried about cow pies getting into the wrong places, but we're not going to tackle the PFAS in the water because that's not a thing. Or the Roundup that they're spraying on our yards in the city. Like let's not worry about human-made toxins, but animal poop is definitely deadly, and we gotta deal with that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let you get to the book club.
Thank you. We're reading Pilgrim's Progress, or no, Regress. Sorry, it's C.S. Lewis.
Oh, okay. Wow.
It's a good book. You should buy it.
I probably will mess with you.
Well, I was actually going to ask if we could start some sort of like book club or something like that where we sort of do some comparison between the Bible, the state, and the U.S. Constitution, and somehow tying that stuff together. But I like that idea too with that.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I like that idea.
Make it happen.
I knew you was gonna call my name sooner or later.
Yep.
All right, but you know who I'm gonna have do it? Not me.
Nose goes.
Rosie.
Yeah, we need to get Rosie on. That would be
yes,
fun.
we do.
Yes. And I'm gonna back off and let her be on with y'all. Y'all play nice when she around. Y'all don't play nice with me.
She's fun.
Oh, good. She's
not
amazing.
that you're not, just in a different way.
Yeah, and
we don't
she
puts
puts up with you, so we have to love her.
It's new fun. It's different fun.
And wait,
Pedaling, because I realized that sounded really bad that I called her fun and not saying you weren't too initially. I'm
but this is the same woman. This is the same woman that went to Pinecone and took a picture.
I did, Sarah. I took a picture of
go.
the luncheon that I had gotten on my way to Pennsylvania, and I sent it to him.
That's awesome. I love you,
Not gonna lie, I
Amber.
was a little less than satisfied with it though. It
You
wasn't.
you lucky I didn't use my pull and have my friends pull you over on the freeway and detain you for about 2 hours for no reason.
I would have cried because I didn't get to New Jersey until 2:20 a.m. the
Oh.
next day,
Ouch.
as it was. So I would have cried, and I would have called you up and been like, "Hey, I'm letting this hotel know that Dr. David D. King from Milwaukee is paying for it."
Right. And I just give them Sarah's credit card number.
I don't have a credit card.
Okay, bye. I
Bye.
wanna
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Talk to y'all later.